Okay, this is Wednesday, February 3rd, 2016, and we are in Reims, France! This episode of the vlog is going to be the last one dedicated to screenwriting. So if you're not into screenwriting, you can skip it. But just so you know, next week it's going to be about the type of festivals an indie filmmaker, a first-time filmmaker, should try to attend, and if it's worth going to Cannes or not for a producer and for a filmmaker when you're trying to make an indie film. If you skip this one, don't forget to come back next week. Last Sunday was the day I was supposed to finish my fourth draft and rewrite to give the screenplay to my producer, as we were trying to apply to the Torino Film Lab. If you remember from episode 4, I had this strategy of writing 15 pages each time I was going through a rewrite session. For a while it went pretty well, and I moved through 80 pages of the third draft, and then I hit a wall. The way I see it, the problem is about ripple effect versus domino effect. Sometimes I tend to think of a story as domino effect. If I move this, everything else is going to fall. But really the truth is, when you're trying to write an interesting story, it's more a ripple effect with concentric circles. So if you move an element, it's going to have impact on many dynamics and characters. So the problem is, by tightening and straightening and modifying certain stories and characters, it had impact on all the other elements. When I hit page 80, the third act didn't make sense anymore and I had to change everything, but I didn't know how. So what I did is that I took my third draft and I broke it down into colored flashcards. This helped me determine how balanced the screenplay was. It's not about it being perfectly harmonized visually, but it just helped me have a global view of what was going on. And most importantly, it helped me move scenes around without freaking out. Because at some point it just gets very confusing. When I was moving an element, I knew I was creating a ripple effect, but I was unable to visualize it. Once I was done, I started playing around, taking out scenes that I felt were useless, adding new scenes, and trying to balance it in a different way. I created a whole new sequence for the fourth draft, and even with all the cards and colored, everything was not perfect. I still took out some scenes, I added some new scenes, and basically the idea is that it's not about being rigid about the cards and following them, it's more about having a visual support to guide you and to show you what you're doing and the impact on the other storylines. And it worked pretty well. I finished the draft on Sunday night against my expectations. While I was writing this fourth draft and going through these ups and downs in terms of storytelling and losing my way and finding it back again, I remember an advice that a fellow filmmaker gave me. Her name is Portia. Here is her full name. I don't know how to say it. While I was writing my story, I started realizing that this was not going to be a do-it-yourself type of film, which is basically what I've been doing up until now. In 5 Years takes place in Istanbul. There are a lot of characters. There are characters from different nationalities. There are characters from different ages and generations. And I knew that this was not going to be ask your friends and family for help and favors. And the temptation is to make choices of scenes and situations that are as small as possible to keep them under budget. The advice Portia gave me, and I go back to every time I start freaking out and getting lost and sidetracked by budget matters or feasibility, is write first what your story needs, and you can always turn the volume down later. And it seems very simple, as all great advice do, but I think it's brilliant. I'm sharing this advice because I feel sometimes we get too sidetracked, especially indie filmmakers, because we're so worried about what do I have and what can I tell with what I have. Sometimes I feel we should give ourselves the luxury of writing what we need to write and then worrying about how to make it happen. Even if it might mean changing a lot of stuff to make it happen, but not in terms of story, in terms of how to tell that story. And at the end of the day, it's thanks to this advice that I am here today, because I wrote what I wanted to write. My producer felt like she wanted to be on board. And I think if I had worried too much about scaling it down so I could make it by myself or with what I had at the time, I would have hit a ceiling that is much lower. This is it. So today was really about this final stage of storytelling on paper, even though it will move forward and it will keep evolving. I think from now on, the next episodes will be much more about the other process, especially right now, applications and strategy. If you don't know it yet, there is a newsletter for the film where you can subscribe. We give exclusive information and we will share more content there as well. So if you want to be part of this journey, check the link below. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I keep forgetting saying it, but you can do it. And I'll see you next week for an episode that will take place in Asia.